Hello there. What is Nigel Farage up to? This latest gaffe is surely just another of his recent moves that further damages Reform UK, his own party. Just after alienating his most ardent supporters and throwing his best thinkers and advisers under the bus, Nigel Farage has decided to appoint Jack Aaron, someone who praised Adolf Hitler and Bashar al-Assad, to oversee his candidate vetting processes. From The Guardian. A Reform UK general election candidate who said Hitler was brilliant at inspiring people and described Bashar al-Assad as gentle by nature is now in charge of the party's vetting process. This is not a good look for a party leader who says he wants to attract more centre-ground support. And Reform UK candidates going forward will be asked at every political interview and hustings, what first attracted Jack Aaron to your Reform UK candidature application? Is that not a permanent open goal? Anyway, Farage and his party chairman Mohammed Zia Yusuf do seem to be piling up problems of their own making. And one of the big ones is this move to find the so-called centre-ground voter by shutting down all debate on the deportation of foreign or dual nationality criminals. When Breitbart is reporting, according to a survey from Pollster Find Out Now, the findings of which were shared with GB News, 84% of British voters would support the government deporting migrants who commit violent crimes. This was backed by 99% of supporters of the Nigel Farage-led Reform UK party. But Nigel Farage wants to ditch some of those 99% of his supporters and water down his party's deportation message in the hope of attracting more centre-ground voters. The problem, though, is if Farage waters down his deportation message, Reform UK becomes just the same as the Tories and might even sound weaker than Keir Starmer's deportation policies. He then loses that potential 84% of all voters. They might say, well, if Reform is just the same as the others, why not vote the way we always have done? They'll have no reason to vote for Reform UK. Reform UK wouldn't have a USP. And by ditching Rupert Lowe, Farage has sent out a clear message that he is watering down his illegal migration and related crime policies. Now, you could claim that Farage just wants to merge with the Tories in the end and this is all part of it. But if that's the case, why put Jack Aaron in charge of candidate vetting? Do you remember this White Cliffs of Dover immigration escalator poster that UKIP under Nigel Farage's leadership pushed out? I get the distinct impression that Nigel Farage would not allow Reform UK to use that type of imaging today. Farage, it seems, has recently managed to actually now put clear blue water between what the voters wants, what Reform UK voters wants, and the watered-down stance that he's forcing on his future candidates. For example, at a future election, a Reform UK candidate could well be up against Rupert Lowe in the Great Yarmouth constituency, where the Reform UK candidate will be trying to brand Rupert Lowe as far right, when in actual fact it will be Reform UK that is far woke. And Rupert Lowe will be able to legitimately ask if the Reform UK candidate, whoever it might be, is in favour of keeping foreign criminals in the UK. And I will not be surprised to see Reform UK and Nigel Farage get skewered on that one more and more going forwards. And Reform UK won't be helping itself if, while chasing the middle ground, it ends up singing from the same hymn sheet on migration as Labour, the Tories and the Lib Dems, the hymn sheet that's all talk and no real action. That is not how you win power. That is how you get a hung parliament. because voters are not choosing between distinctly different messages, only different branding. Right now it appears to me that political parties are not brave enough to stand on their real policy beliefs. Instead, they treat the electorate as a static beast and say their party has to play it vanilla to get the votes. Then, if they get enough of a majority, take the opportunity to annoy their voters by stamping all over them with the big hobnailed boots, just like Labour has done in the last few months. Is that really the Reform UK plan? If it is, I don't think it's a good plan. No, Reform UK should take the case to the people. The statistics are out there to back them up. And with the vast majority of the electorate, they would find themselves pushing at an open door. Their successes at the last election should be telling them just that. But for some reason they've decided to copy Labour, Tories and Lib Dems in hunting for the swing constituencies. Now that approach would never have worked during the Brexit referendum. That win took tens of thousands of activists at grassroots level as well as on social media to win the day. And remember, social media such as Twitter was far more hostile to that type of free speech back then than it is today. And if 84% of the UK electorate favours deporting legal and illegal migrant criminals, then why is Reform UK ditching an MP like Rupert Lowe and doing their best to replace local activists who push out that message? Why are Nigel and Reform not taking the argument to the country? The people are ready to listen and are already beginning to realise what must be done to save this country. So why not take that argument, Brexit style, to the voters? Why not keep telling people about the ethnicity and the crime and social housing occupancy statistics? Unless there is another dynamic at play of morphing Reform UK into a more inward migration-friendly party, like all the others. One-way inward migration. And that is the thing that worries many potential Reform UK activists and supporters as they watch this country turn into, at best, a shadow of its former self. With the question being, why would the two officers of the new democratic company, Reform 2025, Nigel Farage and Mohammed Zia Yusuf, want that to happen? What reason could there be? When just over a year ago the party was much more wedded to the views of Rupert Lowe than they are today. And don't forget that before being a Reform UK MP, Rupert Lowe was an MEP for the same party when it was called the Brexit Party, whose leader was, of course, Nigel Farage. They have known each other and worked together for some years. I do have to say that this whole shift of attitude does not make any logical sense to me. At all. And I will also point out that pollsters JL Partners reported that Nigel Farage's favourable to unfavourable ratio amongst Reform UK voters was 90% favourable to 2% unfavourable in January. But that had slipped to 86% favourable to 4% unfavourable in March. And there could be up to 4 years until the next general election. Finally, please like, subscribe and comment below, and a big shout out to our Patreon supporters. And thank you very much for watching.